Good morning. We've got all of that, right? Tears like the raindrops, love like the ocean, pain like an arrow, too, and strength like a mountain. I'm the Reverend Kevin Tarsa. I'm so glad you're here. Here's my reminder to myself as much as anyone to make sure my phone is turned to silent for the duration so we can be present to each other and to the moment. Our land acknowledgement this morning is offered by Addie.
We acknowledge that, whoa. We acknowledge that we are residents or visitors on land that was never ceded, never given up by the Nisenan people who are still here among us despite the fraudulent removal of their federal tribal recognition, I think. We want to stop erasing them from California history and support their efforts to stabilize their people.
I'm Lindsay.
I'm Kevin.
And we are here to pump you up. Or rather, to help you pump yourselves up.
So we're thinking about strength today and the ways we try to feel strong or to be strong.
And there's a theory about power poses, right? That you can stand in a powerful way and it changes your neurochemistry and how we feel, and so it changes our behavior.
Now, this theory has been challenged. Not everyone's sure that this is true, so we're going to experiment today. Let's test it out. But first, before you move any muscle, I invite you to notice what your position is right now. Just notice your body position right now without changing anything. Just feel what it feels like and what you feel like.
Now let's try some other positions or some other poses and notice how you feel as you try them. I invite you to rise in body and or spirit.
And to figure out how to do this in a room full of people. Our first pose is called the salutation pose. So now when we're not feeling very strong, we often kind of curl up and get small, but a salutation pose has us open our arms and turn our face up like we're looking at the sun warm on our face. Just hold that for a moment and notice what it feels like and how you feel when you're in that pose. Just notice.
Next, I invite you into the Wonder Woman pose. So this is hands on hips, feet spread apart, your chest open and up. This is the I've got this stance. How does that feel?
Next, we have the Vanna White. Now, the Vanna White is half Wonder Woman, half salutation. You can decide which way. One hand on a hip and one hand with an open palm out. Just hold that for a moment, see what that feels like.
And then we have the victory pose. You find this in cultures all over the world. Woo! Arms up, big V.
And finally, the biggest pose you can make. Maybe it's a giant X where you take up a lot of space. You'll have to figure out how to do this with people around you. Take up lots of space, big, full, strong, and notice what that feels like. How do you feel?
Awkward. So maybe it's true. You may all sit down. Thank you for playing along. maybe it's true that the way we hold our bodies can help us to feel stronger and more confident and more ready when we want. Chances are that what's going on inside of us matters too. But it's worth experimenting and noticing so that when we need it, we can find our strength.
For our chalice lighting today, Lindsay, I think the blowtorch might be just a little bit much. So how about we light the chalice more gently today? Thanks, yeah, okay. Brene Brown reminds us that the courage to be vulnerable is not about winning or losing. It's about the courage to show up when you can't predict or control the outcome. And oh, are any of us still under the illusion that we can predict or control the outcome? After the arrival of a pandemic, after an insurrection, in the midst of heart-rending wars and violence, after whatever happened to us personally, after the 8,532nd freaking unprecedented happening, are there any of us still under the illusion that we can predict or control the outcome? Oh, if only, if only. And so, able neither to predict nor control the outcome, yet ready to do all we can to build the world we dream about, together we light our chalice, symbol of this UU tradition and this gathered community here and online, at home, on Zoom. And together we turn our faces toward whatever gleam and warmth that light might offer. And here it comes, right down the aisle. Here comes that light. I know, a small beacon in an engulfing, whirling world, and yet, maybe, it's just the light in the cave dark, reflected on the walls of our lives and in each other's eyes to help us find the way. And so we light our chalice. And I am happy to report that I get to lead the young people on their way to Kids Connection today. So, young people, follow me. Everybody else, you get to sing this little light of mine.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist community of the mountains in Grass Valley. To those in the room and those on Zoom, I'm Lindsay Dunckel, serving as worship associate this morning, and I am so glad you are here. We are a community with diverse spiritual orientations who come from many different backgrounds, who seek to share a journey of spiritual growth and work together to find ways to live our faith in the world. So this morning, we are grappling in playful and serious ways about that interplay of strength and vulnerability. Have you ever used strength or power or control to pave over a sense of vulnerability? I know I have. So for example, many years ago, living with my then fiance, I came down with appendicitis. And as is my MO, I just ignored the symptoms for a few days until I inevitably found myself at a surgeon's office with a very worried fiance, Randy, at my side. And the surgeon told us to go immediately to the emergency room about 40 blocks north. As we left the office, Randy proposed hailing a cab, a very sensible way to get someplace quickly. But I, gripped with fear and feeling incredibly vulnerable, abdominal surgery, yikes, took charge. No, we could not afford a cab. We were going to take the bus. I was very convincing and completely dug in, mustering all the power and strength that I could. We took the bus. The next morning, after surgery, I turned to Randy, who had half slept, I would say, all night on a reclining chair at my side, and I said, okay, there was absolutely no way for you to know this, but I was desperately scared, and I really didn't want to be in charge. So in the future, if I'm being ridiculous, please just override me. So 3 years later, when I was in labor with our firstborn, you'll be glad to know we took a cab. So as with all those power poses, sometimes we can summon strength to get us through hard times. But in a sanctuary such as this, hopefully we can let our guard down and see the ways in which strength does not always serve us. Perhaps there is room here for our vulnerabilities too. So welcome. It is good to be together. Come, let us begin.
I so appreciate your stories, Lindsay. Thank you. I'm drawing on the Enneagram today with its 9 identified personality types, but that's just one resource or tool for looking at and understanding ourselves and each other. The Enneagram isn't the point. The point is the understanding to which it can lead us. And today, I'm hoping it will help us dig in a little bit to one particular aspect of each of our personalities, of each of us. Our effort to both feel and to present an image of strength. And why? Because I think for me this is relevant not only for our personal insights into ourselves and our relationships, but also relevant for how we understand and face the authoritarian impulses that have been rising in our nation and our world, and the perceptions regarding strength that throw fuel on the fire of so many conflicts. The thing about strength is that in one way or another, strength is always hard on the outside and soft on the inside. Or like the geodes in some of our slide photos today, hard and plain and seemingly impervious and solid on the outside, and marvelously multifaceted, sometimes miraculous even, on the inside. To our surprise, shot through with the vulnerability that actually makes strength possible.
On 9/11, I was living in New York City with my husband and 2 young children who were then 3 and 5 years old. When Kevin and I started brainstorming a service about the interplay of power and vulnerability, I thought immediately of that time, of the shockingly vulnerable feeling of living in a place that was being attacked, the recognition of the deep privilege of never having known that feeling previously, and then the swift pivot to images and words of power and strength that flooded the city and the country in response. The New York Post printed a full color 2-page spread image of the American flag that people all over our neighborhood in Brooklyn pasted up in their apartment windows. My older child asked if we could put one up, and I struggled to explain in language appropriate to a 5-year-old why that felt to me like a piece of the jingoism that had landed us here. They drew a flag and we put it up on their bedroom door. On September 11th, I held my 3-year-old son in my arms in Manhattan, looking down Fifth Avenue at the burning towers from outside my graduate school and his daycare, channeling Mr. Rogers, and telling my son that all the sirens we heard were helpers going to the scene, that so many people were helping. Of course, moments later, those burning towers fell and hundreds of those helpers were killed. It was hard to stay afloat in the aftermath. So when we heard that there was going to be a candlelight peace march in a neighborhood near ours on the evening of the 13th, we rode the subway over, carrying our candles and our kids, and joined a throng of people in the falling dusk, slowly making our way along a wide avenue, just kind of shell-shocked and somehow needing to be together. The walkers slowed at one point and the crowd kind of congealed, and I spotted the reason over the heads of those in front of me. A fire engine was parked along the side of the street full of firefighters. The press had been completely focused on these responders' strength and bravery, rightly lauding their truly heroic acts. We all wanted to touch them, and they obliged, hanging their hands down from the open windows of the truck as the crowd filed by, each of hundreds of people reaching up to touch their hands as we passed. It is a moment that is emblazoned in my memory. Clearly still makes me emotional. And not because they were strong and brave and made us feel safe and protected. It was because they allowed themselves to be vulnerable. These people who had lost so many colleagues and friends in the towers. They sat in that truck, hands held out and tears streaming down their faces. It allowed so many of us passing by, greeting, thanking, acknowledging their losses, to let our tears flow as well. A courageous act of vulnerability that provided for me a first bit of healing from that collective trauma.
Mm.
As you may have noticed, the dominant culture and history in the United States values masculine heroism and strength, especially in times of stress or danger, which is why keeping people afraid serves authoritarian ends. But even in gentler times, stereotypical strength is idealized. For example, Reverend Jan spoke last spring of the Iowa Sisterhood, a group of visionary women Unitarian ministers in the late 1800s and early 1900s who built Unitarian congregations throughout the Midwest, which was then the frontier for people of European descent, and the social edge where it was distant enough from the entrenched societies of the East for people to have room to break into new ways of being. These women took the jobs that the male ministers in the East found too daunting, or at least unappealing. And in the process, these women changed the nature of church life by modeling ministries that were more pastoral, by making their churches architecturally and spiritually more like a home, more applicable to daily life than the academic approach that was the norm. But by the 1930s, these women had largely been driven into retirement or into public roles, in part because of a sentiment that had arisen among those in power in the United States that leadership in general in the nation had become too soft, i.e. too feminine. And so came a push for more masculine leadership in general in the nation. I'll point out that this urge would have been heightened by the tragedies of the First World War and the flu pandemic of 1918, times of fear. In our own time, of course, we have the rise of Donald Trump and Trumpism. But as has often been pointed out now, this is not merely about that individual man. As Gabor Mate has put it, Trump is too easy a mark. Mate shares the story he saw told in a video, the story of a 4-year-old girl bullied by the neighborhood kids who, terrified, ran home to her mother for support and protection and consolation. Her mother, who herself had been terribly neglected as a child, told this 4-year-old girl, "There's no room for cowards in this house. You go back outside and figure out how you're going to deal with what these kids are doing." The story was told by Hillary Clinton in the biography video that introduced her at the 2016 Democratic National Convention, the convention at which she was named the party's candidate. Mate explains that this story about Hillary's childhood was presented in that video as a story of resilience building parenting. In the same video, Clinton shared her father's messages of don't whine, don't complain, do what you're supposed to do. These stories were meant to point out Hillary's strength and where it had come from. But Gabor Mate points out that the deeper message that Hillary Clinton had taken in as a child was that there was no room for vulnerability in that house. Those stories were shared in that convention because a lack of vulnerability is what people in the dominant national culture look for in our leaders, especially when we're feeling unsafe and feeling a need for protection. That's what we look for. Mate points out that in 2016, in that election, we had 2 traumatized people running for the presidency. 2 people who had each in their own way exiled their own vulnerability. In fact, not whining, not complaining, doing just what she was supposed to do, just as her father had taught, Hillary Clinton nearly collapsed about 6 weeks after the convention, having tried to push through a bout of pneumonia without telling anyone what was really going on. Now, I share this because Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are large, public, side-by-side editions of a dynamic that plays out in some form in each of us. The truths that we are both strong and vulnerable. That life experiences teach each of us to project our identity of strength in some way for our survival and protection. That the more we deny or cut ourselves off from that vulnerability, the more we risk hurting ourselves and hurting others. And the greater the chance, if we accept that vulnerability, to find true and lasting strength, genuine strength. Now, in Enneagram language, this aspect of strength is associated with our 8-ness, or type 8. For some people, the effort to find a sense of safety and security through strength and control is a primary defining characteristic of their personality. It's a person's great gift, I would point out, and their great burden. Or said differently, that drive to project strength in the world is some people's unique excellence and at the same time, their tragic flaw. 8s are known as the challenger, the leader, the protector, the assertive, self-confident, decisive, willful type, the confrontational, dominating, action-oriented, heroic, direct, bullshit detecting, insistent, big personality type, whether they're physically big or not. The kind of person who gets things done, who has a vision, who's ready to take charge, who's willing to let someone else take charge, but only if they're going to do things at least as well. A person who does not want to feel weak or out of control or dependent on others, or to have their decisions or their authority questioned, who's ready to stand up for themselves and who's also ready to stand up for and protect others. Some 8s are described as having mama bear energy, ferocious when it comes to protecting what and who they care about. 8s don't always recognize that their big blowtorch energy is bowling other people over, and are surprised to learn that. So I know there are many different shades of being 8 and many influences. This is just to get us in the ballpark. And I know that in the room and online, there are people who know themselves as 8s, and there are people who know and love and think they understand their 8s. And there are people who've been studying the Enneagram and might have a pretty good sense of 8. So I'm going to ask you, if you're one of those people, what's one thing you would name in a sentence that you know about 8s? What's one thing that you think might be important to name about 8s? I'm going to grab my computer so I can look at the chat. Anybody? What's one thing? They're loyal. They can be intimidating. If they love you, they'll take care of you. There's emotion that runs under the surface. They're emotional, yeah, even if not showing it. Perseverance. They can champion the underdog. Often shy. Fully present. We work hard at what we do. Use their intuition, and that scares people. A natural leader. They cause me to back away. All true. Randy. They're great gift givers. Elon Musk.
Go where others fear to tread.
Go where others fear to tread, yes. Yeah. Saviors. That's great. Thank you. That helps round it out a bit, right? All these qualities, neither good nor bad in and of themselves, right? They can be used to good end. They can be used healthily and well. They can also get us into trouble. And remember, we all have that 8ness inside of us at some level. Some folks that people from the outside have identified as 8s might be the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Serena Williams, Barbara Walters, Clint Eastwood, Queen Latifah, Winston Churchill, Toni Morrison, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Pink, Muhammad Ali, Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games, Voldemort, and Harry Potter, Darth Vader, and Princess Leia. We each have all these personality types and aspects in us, but typically we have one primary motivation that drives us more powerfully and with less consciousness on our part than others. It's a motivation that's born out of our experiences early in life when we learned that one important aspect of ourselves was not going to be fed or affirmed or was thwarted or denied by the behaviors of those who cared for us. Some important part of us that didn't get recognized or fed. It happens to all of us. That's our human experience. As with Hillary and Donald, what is common to many people we might consider 8s is that they grew up in a conflict-heavy environment in which they had to grow up fast to survive, had to become tough in order to protect themselves and sometimes to protect others. They learned that it wasn't safe for them then to be soft or gentle, and they learned instead to project an image of strength in order to protect some deep part of who they are. And out of that lived experience very early in life came an understanding and an understandable fear of being harmed or controlled by others. And so 8s develop a deep, usually very unconscious drive to protect themselves. They learn to feel that everything's okay, that they're okay as long as they're strong enough and in control of the situation. Sound familiar? Whether you think of yourself as an 8 or just recognize your own 8-ness. Underneath all of this is that bundle of vulnerability that can't be allowed to surface, though of course it's right there. Hard on the outside, driven by a need to protect the soft on the inside. I think it's Mickey Scott Bay Jones who says she thinks of 8s as teddy bears in combat boots. At their best, 8s offer their big energy and strength, as several of you have named, as well as their very big hearts. Strong, yes, but also in touch with their own softness. We count on such people to be our best, powerfully constructive leaders, to help us move forward into territory no one else dare get into, for helping us get all kinds of things done. When I asked members of a previous UUCM Board of Trustees to locate their likely Enneagram type, 4 of the 7 members at the time identified as 8s. Like all of us, 8s move up and down levels of health and functioning, sometimes aiming toward those happier sides of 8 and sometimes not so much. Sometimes several times in a day, sometimes several times in an hour, right? It depends on how we're feeling and what's happening. For an average 8, this means flowing usually from being an enterprising adventurer to being a dominating power broker to being a confrontational adversary. That's the usual kind of average range. But if fear keeps winning out and the vulnerability can't be allowed, then an 8 can become a ruthless outlaw or even an omnipotent megalomaniac. Now, you may have noticed that these Enneagram names for those increasingly fearful and desperate levels, those lower levels of functioning for 8, they follow exactly Donald Trump's career, life and career. From enterprising adventurer to dominating power broker to confrontational adversary to ruthless outlaw to omnipotent megalomaniac is the territory we're in now, right? Flirting there. Many of us find it confounding, but Trump's woundedness and his inability to allow himself to feel any vulnerability and thus any doubt is exactly what some people so love and appreciate and need to find in him. We're confounded by it. That's exactly what some people are looking for. The irony for 8s and for the 8 in each of us is that so much of the armor we put up and put on is in the end a surface strength. It looks strong, right? But actually it's a vulnerable substitute for the real and enduring strength that we long to feel, and that is in fact available inside of us. The size and depth of our personal armor matches and masks exactly the amount of vulnerability we feel and fear inside. I think it's important to know this about ourselves, and I think it's important to know this about each other. It can be a source not only of understanding, but also a source for our compassion. to recognize the sense of vulnerability that is born of hurt and disguised within a sometimes very challenging exterior, including our own. Before I offer final thought in this direction, I invite Scotty Hart to share a meditation on courage and vulnerability by Douglas Taylor. We've abbreviated it slightly. I invite you to let these words be your invitation to this weekly joys and sorrows ritual in which we search our hearts for what's stirring there and then acknowledge it in a physical way. I invite you to let the words surface whatever needs to surface in you this morning. It may help to begin by receiving a few deep breaths. A couple more. And it may help to take the body position, adjust as you need, so you're seated there in a way that helps you to be most centered, most present to yourself and to each other.
I am learning to let down my guard. We all know about the deep instinct to respond to difficulty and stress with either fight or flight, with force or swift retreat, with decisive attack or prompt withdrawal. When faced with stress or difficulty or challenge, I am learning to let down my guard. I'm learning to be vulnerable. I am seeking the courage to be open. I would have my vulnerability be a choice made from my courage rather than my fear. I would have my vulnerability be my strength. May my strength be not found as a hard shell of defense or a sharp weapon of attack. May my strength instead be found in an open stance of kindness and empathy, like a tree bending gracefully in the windstorm. May my strength be found in a willingness to join in the suffering of others, like a forest of trees together in a storm. May I choose to be receptive rather than protected, sharing rather than shielded. In this way, may I face my own suffering and the suffering of others with a nimble capacity to respond with compassion. In this way, may my vulnerability be an invitation for others to meet me in the open field with a yearning for understanding and peace. I know this is a risk. I know I may be hurt. I know things may not go well. But still, I will seek the courage to set aside the closed fist, the stinging retort, the barbed judgment of others. I will seek within myself the strength to stand exposed and unguarded before the world, in the wind, open to difficulty, not because I cannot be any other way, but because I have chosen this better way. I am still learning to be vulnerable. I seek the courage to be so vulnerable. May I have others who can help me to be so courageous. May my example serve others as well as myself. And may my strength be our strength in sharing this life openly with others.
I invite you to search your heart in the silence to find your prayers, your focused hope, your longing, your desire, your care, your compassion. and to mark it for yourself and for others if you wish. If you're here in the room, by taking a stone from the table and placing it in the bowl of water, symbol of all that holds us. For those online, I invite you to type some piece of what you bring with you today into the chat. This morning, a little different than usual, I invite us to sing as we do this, to sing as we do this. And once again, to know that you don't have to be one person at a time at the table, that there's room for company, there's room for fellow travelers as you share that stone. But it's to hold each other, to stay present and to hold each other throughout. Here comes verse 1. When I am angry, will you still embrace me? When I am thoughtless, will you understand? Will you believe in me? Stand by me willingly. Will you share some of your questions? This morning we have the tenderness of the rain, welcome in so many ways. We have the joy of yesterday's harvest festival, playful creativity and fun and delicious food and much generosity, thanks to all. And of course, we have the people of Israel and Gaza and nearby and far beyond in mind and heart. Drawing again on the words of our new president, Sophia Betancourt, Reverend Sophia Betancourt, each in our own way, let us pray for the people of Israel and Palestine. Pray for the leaders around the globe who must respond to this latest flare of violence and the untenable ethical considerations that abound. Let us pray for Muslim and Jewish people who here experience the impact of this long strife acutely. Pray that those of us less likely to know the trauma of unending brutality and harm will not turn away unless we must. May we remember that we are one global family, living tenuously on the same human-impacted earth, centering ourselves in justice, even as we call for peace. In the name of all that each of us knows as holy, may our prayers be heard, perhaps by our own heart and our own ears. May it be so. The meditation that Scotty read named the path of spiritual and emotional growth for eights and for the eightness in us. A journey toward integration and wholeness, the move upward in the spiral, is a journey of learning to come to terms with and accept and even befriend, if we can, our own inherent vulnerability, which we cannot get rid of, even if we try to ignore it. As you likely know, Brené Brown teaches the journey of vulnerability in powerful and moving ways. She's a tremendous resource, and if you haven't explored her work around vulnerability, I encourage you to do so. In the Enneagram teachings, the journey upward of integration toward wholeness and health, it always begins with watching ourselves in action. That's always the starting place. Simply noticing, observing and noticing what we do and what goes on in us with a whole lot of kindness and compassion, without kicking ourselves for being something different we think we ought to be. Watching, noticing what's going on, how it feels. Noticing the poses we hold in our lives and the behaviors that get stirred up without our permission, without asking us. One of the wake-up calls for eights, the signal that we're starting to go on to automatic pilot and to be driven by that fear underneath, is that we start to use a little too much force in all kinds of ways. It might be force the way we grab the doorknob. It might be the way we respond to what someone just said. It might be the trying to ensure that that thing is going to happen exactly the way we want it to. When we notice we're starting to exert more force, that's a sign that, something's going on. Likely I'm feeling vulnerable, unsafe in some way. It's a signal to get curious and to know that something underneath is stirring. Beatrice Chestnut, I think, lights the path of growth well for this eightness in us. For eights and for the eight in us, she says, this journey first involves gently observing the ways in which we express our power. How do we show our power in our life? And what are the ways we try to avoid feeling weak and try to avoid feeling dependent? Start there, observe there. Once we are able to do that, she says, the next part of the journey invites us to explore and get curious and understand the deeper truth of why, the deeper truth of our early and our ongoing hurts, those experiences that shaped us, how we deny them or brush them off, or how we overcompensate by being extra strong, even though we are no longer that 4-year-old. And then, if we're able to do that, the journey encourages us to take action then, to seek some more balance, to balance our 8 kind of forcefulness and strength and autonomy with a growing awareness of our softness, of our emotional depth, of our capacity to relate to others. It's particularly important, she writes, for 8s to develop a more direct relationship with their vulnerability and to develop the strength to be seen as weak. To develop the strength to be seen as weak. I know that does not sound like fun, but it does sound right. As Brene Brown put it, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. So start with noticing, I suggest to all of us. Start with noticing in ourselves, in the people we love, and the people we don't love. Start with the compassionate noticing so that you might find your way to understanding and then to right action, which sometimes does call for mama bear protectiveness and blowtorch energy, but protectiveness and energy that knows and accepts its softness and vulnerability to brushing hands, one or hundreds. Each and together, may we find our way along that path. We find our way along that path for ourselves, for each other, for our world. So may we be.
It is said that money is power. And each week we get an opportunity to share that power by giving it freely and joyfully away to contribute to the workings of this community. Each month we share a quarter of our offerings with a local nonprofit that reflects our values. This month, 25% of our offering will support wildlife rehabilitation and release. They are dedicated to the care and rehabilitation of injured and orphaned wildlife. Each year, their team successfully releases over 100 different species of native wildlife, including mammals, songbirds, raptors, waterfowl, reptiles, and amphibians. And if you would like 100% of your giving to support wildlife rehabilitation and release, please put your offering in the white envelope in the basket. And please see the slide for ways to give by text, PayPal, UUCM's website, or by mail. Thank you for your generosity. We dedicate these offerings to the dream of a world where strength, undergirded by vulnerability, is used to protect and not destroy, to care and not inflict, to create and not tear down, to lead with love. May it be so.
So if you're, yeah, Bob, thanks for the slide still. If you're one of these people who helped this morning happen, would you, if you're willing, either rise in body or raise your hand? If you're one of the people who helped this morning happen. Toby would have a hand up. Some people would have a hand up. Scotty would have a hand up. I invite you to look around with appreciative eyes and maybe hmms and yeah. Make a plan to say thank you. And today we have a special thank you. So Cypress has been back here Sunday after Sunday after Sunday volunteering and doing so fabulously to help us make sure the sound and the Zoom feed happens well. And we have a special thank you gift for Cypress. And Bob Miller was smart enough to ask Cypress what Cypress wanted. So come on down. It's big. Got it? Cypress, thank you. It's a joy to work with you every weekend. We are so grateful. That is a monitor. That's a new monitor for home. Appropriate, right? An appropriate gift. A few announcements for this week. Coming up, we've got the young adult group meets today, and this is 20 people in their 20s and 30s is the definition of young adult. I know some of us stretch that. But Sophia is helping gather interested. Here's Sophia right here, gathering young adults. Yeah, spread the word to the young adults you know. Also coming up, we've got the Humanism Discussion Group on Wednesday, November 1st, not this week, but the following week. George Dunstan is here if you have any questions about that. And there's an ancestors potluck, and this is one to which people bring food of their ancestors is the idea. So Beth Carroll is organizing that again on Friday the 3rd, just to alert you to that and have you be ready. As always, check the website or sign up for our weekly newsletter, the E-Chalice. I'll put in some more resources for thinking about eights this week, for example. And you can get that newsletter or the monthly newsletter. So to close, I invite us to sing a two-part song. It has us singing about the faith, the hope, the love, the joy within. We're going to sing the lower part a couple times first, and then we're just going to keep going and launch into the upper part with those who know it. So I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and to sing. Now let us sing. Here's the low part a couple times. Now let us sing, 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 sing. Now let us sing, 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 sing. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Now let us sing to the power of the faith within. Now let us sing, 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 sing. Now let us sing, 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 sing. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Now let us sing to the power of the faith within. Now let us sing to the power of the faith within. Sing to the power of the faith within. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Sing to the power of the faith within. Now let us sing to the power of the hope within. Sing to the power of the hope within. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Sing to the power of the hope within. Now let us sing to the power of the love with love. Sing to the power of the love within. Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Sing to the power of the. We get to do love again. Now let us sing to the power of the love within. Sing to the power of the love within. through the power of the joy within. Thanks for your creativity. Our closing words are from our better angels. In fact, this is a letter from our better angels, AKA by Sean Parker Dennison.
Dear one, we have received your letter and hate to tell you, not hate so much, but are a bit afraid to say we cannot grant your requests as stated, but only remind you of familiar things.
First, faith. Faith in yourself and trust in others. We know it can be terrifying to be vulnerable, but only when you share your softest side will we be able to break through.
Next, hope. Hope is not an empty fairy tale. It is a true story of all the times human beings like you have found a way to create the future, though you didn't know how.
And of course, love. Love that demands you cherish all people, not just yourself and safety. Love that is not satisfied until every argument ends abruptly when one child says, "That hurts."
There is so much to learn and relearn. The world teaches you to be hard, to negotiate and defend, to avoid giving too much and to the wrong people. There are no wrong people.
You also are not wrong. And when you encounter the poor, the broken, the unhoused and unwelcome, you are looking, if you pay attention, at us calling to you, calling you to answer your own prayers.
If you want to change the world, first, be sure you are changing yourself. Be tender, be kind, be at peace. Be all the things you wish for. Be your own better self. It isn't without cost, but it will be free.
Remembering this and remembering to remind each other as we extinguish our chalice, we take the light with us, and together we carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. The salutation pose. If you're here in the building, I invite you to join us for refreshments, and everyone will see you next Sunday for our annual All Souls service, remembering those who have died. And if you have not yet done so, I invite you to say hello to the people around you with whom you've been spending the last hour. We'll see you soon.